Hey, alright, so one of the last things I want to do here, before we go ahead and create our maple leaves, is I want to show you how to actually reduce the poly count on your tree. So right now I'm sitting at about 3,300 tries, and while it doesn't seem like, a huge number in terms of polygonal modeling, which, can get up to tens of thousands, if you're not particularly careful, uh, if you can imagine taking a tree like this and then duplicating it around, if this is instanced or you've painted it onto a landscape, that number is going to get ridiculously high. And if, for example, I'm only ever going to see the tree from this far away, there's a lot of polygonal detail here which is totally unnecessary. So I want to show you how to use the reduce tool on this, but I also want to show you how to use the lattice tool to build just a little bit more visual interest in these forms. Because at the moment, this is looking super stiff. This would work for a stylized, almost crystalline environment, but anything organic and soft, this is entirely too stiff for. So what I might do is I might show you how to use the lattice tool first, and then I'll show you how to use the reduce tool to cut down on our polys. Okay, so the lattice tool it's a lot of fun. I'm just gonna what the lattice tool does is it gives you a matrix of points that you can push and pull on, and you can basically manipulate the shape of this tree um, all like as one object in a really organic way. Um, and you don't need to like play with just each individual vertice. So let me show you what that actually looks like. So I'm going to select all of my objects here. So it's everything that makes up my tree. Before I do anything wildly exciting, like using a lattice tool, I like to delete history. So history is on any one of these objects, your history will generally sit here at the bottom of the channel box, and that history still has math associated with it. It still has an operation associated with it, and so it's very easy, I found in Maya, to foobar a model. If, for example, you have history with its associated operation, and then you do a new operation, those two operations sort of can multiply against each other sometimes and have some really horrible results. Um, so I tend to try to delete history before I do anything major like lattice or combine or any of that fun stuff. Okay, so lattice tool. You select your object and you go up to deform, and the lattice tool is just here. It's like your fifth one down. I want the options because at default, let me just show you what that looks like. So at default, I get this sort of green cage around my model. And if I right click and hold on just outside my model, I want to right click and hold within that green cage, but not necessarily on the model itself. I can go to lattice point, and what I get are these like almost vertices, and you can see that I can affect this model um, quite dramatically, very very easily. And this is how you can get some really cool stylized cartoony effects with this, and you can make some pretty broad sweeping changes to your object really quickly, and it produces a very cool result. So I would like a little bit more information. Like I'd like a few more lattice points to be able to push and pull. Like I'd like to be able to get in here and start like warping the shape of these tree limbs and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'll create a new lattice, but first I need to get rid of the old one. So in order to get rid of the old lattice, it's all you have to do is select your object again. Um, so just select your object there, deselect your lattice, you don't actually need that in your selection, and go delete by type history. That will clear away your lattice, but you get to keep all the changes that you made. So let's create a new lattice. Once again, I'm just going to show you where that is one more time. So it's under Deform, Lattice, and Options. In order to give myself more lattice points within that sort of matrix of lattice points, the the function or the setting I want to change is the divisions here. Now just remember that in terms of which number corresponds to which point on the compass, first column is always X, middle column is always Y, and last column is always Z. So X, Y, Z. So let's say, because remember when we created the last lattice, we had those 5 lines of lattice points. So that was 5 divisions in the Y space, which you can see there. Let's create, let's just change all of that. Let's make it 5 by 5 by 5. If I hit apply, you'll see I've got much more of a grid now. Well, much more of a matrix grid. And now I should be able to come in and grab just a couple points on the inside here and start building just a little bit of organic curve and twist and bend into my tree. Like I really want to break up how stiff that is. And there's a lot of duplicate shapes in here. I would very much like to alter how those duplicate shapes look from each other, so it's not, you know, the eye doesn't look at this and go, hang on a minute, that's an awful lot of duplicates. Alright. So, I did that last one because I made a few choices that ended up flattening out my object quite severely, and I don't want to flatten my object. I want to curve it. I want to make it more organic. What's cool about the lattice is, like, as you could see, my model is still all separate objects. Like, I haven't combined anything. I haven't uh, I haven't even technically finished modeling yet, and yet I can treat it as one object without having to actually lose the independence of each of these branches and these shapes, which I think is just really cool. So just take some time. I'm going to pause the video here, and you go ahead and take some time to work a little bit more shape into your trees, and then when we come back, we will delete history on that and go through the reduce poly tool. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the shape I've got now. I'm going to delete history on this guy, and then we are going to reduce some of these polys. I'm also going to do a little bit of cleanup because in my manipulations I have knocked some branches out of place. So in order to get rid of my lattice, once again, I will just select everything, deselect the lattice itself, and then just go edit, delete by type, history, and there it is. Alright, check out this guy. He's just floating off in space, not quite having a good time there. I'm just gonna take a minute to go around and look for any of these branches that I have knocked out of position and just nudge them back into place again. On the whole, it's looking pretty good. I don't see too much that's just sort of like floating off, detached, not connected to anything else. Okay. Alright, I'm pretty happy with this. Sweet. Cool. Now, it's just such a cool shape. I'm having so much fun with that. Okay, last thing to do. Let's actually reduce some of the poly count here. So, especially in places like this, where you've got these little, like, little twigs and stuff, and, like, look how far away we are. We really don't need it to have that many polys per twig. So, the reduce tool, and if you've done anything interesting in a while, you should probably save your scene, as I'm going to do. So the reduce tool is under mesh and reduce. So as always, it's a good idea to go open up the options and see what you've got available to you. So reduce options. The one we're gonna play with the most is on the percentage. Now you can change your reduction method, so how it chooses to reduce, and I do recommend experimenting with each of these. Um, Percentage is the one we're going to go with today. So if I leave it at the default of 50%, watch what happens with my twig here. So I'll just leave it at default 50% and I'll hit apply. And you'll see that it's cut down the number of polys quite significantly. I'm just going to undo. Okay, so this twig has 264 tries. When I've set my percentage to 50% on reduce options and hit apply, it drops down to 119 tries. Much lower, significantly lower. And that's like, if you can imagine, as I work my way through this object, it's just going to get lower and lower, and my poly count will become a lot more sane. Now, if I do it one more time, well, I've reduced it so far that I've lost quite a bit of mass. And I got an error saying, what are you doing? But I can actually change that percentage to something like, let's reduce it by 20% and see how far we go. So I've reduced it by 20%. I've lost parts of my object, but honestly, it looks pretty cool. So I'm okay with that, and I've dropped that down to 84 tries now. So I'm going to do that reduction starting with 50% and moving into probably 20% after the fact on each of these end branches, each of these bits of branch that sort of are up here, and they have reduced in size quite significantly. So all the small collections of branches, reduce that by 50%. Check this out though. If I hit reduce by 50%, watch what happens here. These are just things to be aware of. You see this little guy just floating off in space? The downside of this tool is it will end up with faces that just kind of do their own thing. So maybe I might change that to 40. Hit apply again. Aha! Okay. Reduced with no strange faces floating off in space, which is very exciting. Okay, let's try this one now. Cool. Alright, take some time to go through and see if you can't reduce the polys on your tree before we go in and do the leaves and finish this off. Okay, so in mine, using the reduce tool and going around this tree and taking my time, I have reduced the polys down to 2001 tries. So we've just knocked off 1,600 tries. And that's going to make a huge difference when we're duplicating this stuff around. Okay, so that was the lattice tool and the reduce tool in order to alter the overall shape of our tree and reduce the poly count. And now we're going to build our little maple leaf branches and duplicate those around. Okay, we'll catch you in the next lesson.